Hi everyone, it's Nicole from the Retail Marketers, and today I'm putting on my old hat as the previous owner of My Christmas. I have spent 17 years in the space of helping retailers and businesses and of course general consumers to find beautiful Christmas displays and create them for their spaces. So today I thought it was time to start putting our thinking caps on to decide what Christmas displays you could put into place this year. We're going to take a lot into consideration, including obviously money, space, and time you've got to set it up. So let's get to it. Did you know Christmas music and decorations have been proven to have a positive effect on dopamine levels? And do you know what dopamine levels are? They are the feel-good hormone. So that in itself is a great reason to start and think about adding some Christmas decor to your store if you're not already doing anything for the coming Christmas season. So what we're going to do here is talk about a couple of different areas of your displays and how you can work your overall store look together. As I said, it's important to consider budget. It's important to consider the space that you have. The one thing I do always suggest to clients is that they choose to decorate a few spaces well rather than adding a bit here and a bit there. You're going to get far more wow factor if you do that one display for Christmas really well. And these feature display areas will have far more impact than spending the same amount of money trying to fill the entire store. So particularly if you've got a larger space, a lot of people think they need to have Christmas everywhere. I would suggest you're much better off maybe first year with your windows display, second year you might add a second display area to your store, and the third year you might go with another display area or even just behind the counter, something like that. But keep your products together for Christmas, group them together. The other thing to know is I'm assuming that you're not selling Christmas in this video, but if you are a gift store, then you obviously have the advantage, or even if you create some displays with some hanging ornaments, you may decide to carry some of those ornaments because as soon as you put something in that looks good in your store, people are going to ask about it and want to buy it. So it may be an opportunity to buy a little bit of stock as well and on-sell it. If you are thinking about that, you can also work with your wholesalers. So try and choose pieces that maybe give you a little bit more flexibility. They have a bit more in stock. You don't have to pre-order it. And that way, if you do get more orders, you may be able to add on additional purchases of that stock from your wholesaler as well. First thing I always think of when I'm thinking of how to dress a store for Christmas is, can we add fairy lights anywhere? Fairy lights, fairy lights, fairy lights. They always scream Christmas to everyone. They're so festive. You can see them during the day as well as at night. So don't be afraid just because your clients are primarily going to see them during the day to put them into your store. They are certainly useful during the day as well as evening. So first of all, if you're looking at fairy lights, power them wherever you can. They're going to be a stronger, brighter light than a battery-powered set of fairy lights, and also you're not going to be paying the money to and looking after the replacement of batteries all the time for those items. So even if it means you have a cord that is hanging from the item, just try and discreetly get it into a corner if you can of your store display, or if you have ceiling power, or just run it as close to the power point as you possibly can, then I would definitely have a cord rather than going with battery, because the piece itself is going to have a lot more impact than it would if you went with battery lights. All fairy lights now, particularly in Australia, should be LED, so they are low power use and therefore they can be left on all day. I used to leave my lights on all the time, but as in 24/7, from the minute we opened our store in September to the minute we closed at the end of December, early January. Some people, though, prefer to turn them off during the evening or give the transformers a break, depending on your quality of lights that you've got. So you should, though, find that the actual use of the fairy lights is not going to add a whole lot to your electricity bill. And what I've done with most of the images that I'm going to share, they will have fairy lights in them. So you will see the use of fairy lights in lots of different installations in stores and how you could add them to different areas of the store. So I haven't got a set of photos specifically for fairy lights, except for this one additional photo that I think is a great option to look at. If you have an awning out the front of your store, if you have a way of stringing lights under the awning, they look magnificent. This is in Oxford Street in London, and one of the main department stores. But it is such a stunning way to add that little bit of fairy light glow to the store, and keeping it on obviously if you did something like this in the evening as well to get any passing traffic. So certainly more relevant if you're in a strip shop than if you're in a shopping centre. So ceiling displays obviously have the benefit of not impacting your floor space. So that's crucial. Retail floor space is critical, and it is the value and where you obviously need as much floor space as possible at Christmas time with additional stock that you often carry. So the commercial ceiling tiles have a grid on them, and the tiles just sit in that grid. That means you can put hooks around the grid itself, which makes it easy to add displays in lots of different locations in your store. We used to also have power in our ceiling displays because we obviously were lighting a lot of what we did. So depending on what you're doing in your store, you may decide to have power in there, or you may already have power and you can run a cord through the ceiling tile. We used to have to snip a little corner of the ceiling tile to get the cord through, but that was a great option to stop us having cords running all over the store, and made a big impact to the display. That, as I say, is if you are always going to be lighting things or regularly changing your displays and you want to have the ability to add power to the displays that you have there. If you do have ceiling tiles, or if you think that you would like to change your displays on a regular basis, I think that it's well worth having a look at a permanent grid that you add. So we used to have aluminium or metal grid, probably not aluminium actually, they would have been metal grids that sat on hooks from the ceiling. They were always there, making it very easy for us to add whatever displays we wanted from those grids. And I'll show you some examples in the photos in a moment. And that, for us, we actually had the ceiling tiles, but if I didn't have them, I still would have attached some permanent hooks to the ceiling and run those grids down so that I could always use them if I needed them. Okay, so let's look at some of the displays. A lot of these photos are photos I've taken in my store or when I've been on my buying trips in America or around Australia. And so obviously there's a lot of Christmas decor in the images, but what we're doing is we're focusing on particular parts that you can use in your store. So the first one is this wreath display that we've run from the ceiling. So we've obviously got lights running down the middle of that, the crystals. It was quite a wow factor, a piece that customers talked about for years after we did it. But as you can see in the right-hand photo, you can see that we've got a grid sitting very close to the top of the roof or to the ceiling itself. And then we have cable tied the wreath on there. We do have power. In this case, because it's close to the window, we've run the power through behind the garland that's running around the window. And that has powered the wreath and also powered those lights down the middle of the wreath. For your information, those lights down the middle, they are like 2 meter long, 10 string little micro lights, and they often come as sort of two groups. And so we just let them drop down to give that lovely swirl effect of the lights through there. So a ceiling grid like that is a great option to be able to, as I said, very easily change out your displays as well. In these two photos, again, the left-hand photo is the front window, a different, bigger grid that we've used to then feed the lights through. That way we can separate the light strings out. So that, again, in fact, they're exactly the same lights as we had in that last photo, but they've just been separated out to create more of a curtain effect in the front window. So having the grid there gives us the flexibility to maneuver those lights and put them wherever we want. And then the photo on the right is just showing the wreath again hanging from the ceiling. Now you can actually see that if you look closely to the right of the wreath, you can actually see the cord has been hooked into the grid and then comes down behind the fireplace as well. So that's just showing you how you can actually hang something like a wreath anywhere in your store. Doesn't have to be against a wall, and that's a great option. I've got a whole section of wreaths to show you in a moment. When you do something like this, though, remember it needs to be double because people can see it on both sides. So therefore, if you turn to the back of that, you'll see it looks exactly the same. And what we did, we cable tied 2 wreaths together so that it created an entire look rather than seeing an ugly back in the store. Now here's another display. This is actually Macy's. So, you can look at this and go, oh my God, that would cost a fortune for all those baubles. And of course it would if you wanted to do large areas, but you could do something like this in a smaller space. So again, this would be great above your counter if you have a small counter area, or if you have a small entrance area, you might want to do something like this. You can run it from ribbon like they've done here, or you could run them on fine fishing line so the baubles are just hanging by themselves. I believe from memory they just actually stapled those straight into the ceiling. That's not, you've got to be careful of your lease and so forth, but it is an option if you wanted to, or if you're going to be doing something like this in a small space, have a couple of grids that you can hang the baubles from. This is the same area. So again, Macy's in 2012, I think that's when I was there, and then in 2017 or 18. So they've done exactly the same thing, but they've used paper snowflakes. So you can even make snowflakes. You can do something like this very cost effectively. You can buy them or you can make them. And, and that's the advantage of thinking about what you're going to do now. So you can look out for where you can get some of these items and keeping the pricing down to create the look. But an amazing look with the simplicity of just repeating of the snowflakes over and over in that space. And this is another, so this is the front of the store again, where the first photo we showed you with the wreath, this is the same area of the store, a different year. So we've put a grid up there and use the honeycomb balls. So honeycomb balls are a great option. They're very inexpensive for their size. So you get lots of bang for buck, I like to say. So if you've got a store where you want something that's got a bigger wow factor, then using something like the honeycomb balls is a great way to go. You can use any colors you want as well, so you can do multiple colors like we have here, or go with a monotone in the same way that you had the monotone in the last 2 photos that we saw. So the second group of products that I love to recommend to people is garlands. I think garlands are such an easy option for your store and gives you so much flexibility. You can use the same garland year upon year, but change the look of it, and you will have a new display each and every year. The one thing, as I've said here, is always buy quality garlands with lots of foliage. So my old business, mychristmas.com.au, if you're in Australia, Artificial Xmas Tree Warehouse was where we used to get them, if Tamara doesn't have any of those, but they are both commercial grade quality garlands. If you get cheap garlands, they're always going to look cheap and you're never going to get the fullness, and they're not going to last you as long either. And I would also suggest that you get garlands that are not lit to give you maximum flexibility. It's not hard to light the garlands. We have a Christmas Coach YouTube channel, and I have how-to videos on there, and there's videos showing how to light a garland and how to light a wreath as well. So you can very easily cut garlands to length, and if you join 1.5 garlands, for example, together, you can then run the lights through that. Whereas if you have each garland lit, it means you can't cut them to the exact size that you need. So let's have a look at a couple of ways you can use garlands in your store. First of all, if you have a mirror, so if you've got mirrors for your customers, even in your change rooms, you could add a beautiful garland. Another way of keeping your costing down on something like garlands and wreaths is you might start the first year by investing in your garland and lights, and then decide to add decorations to it the following year. I promise you it's not actually hard to decorate if you choose to. Otherwise, a lot of the Christmas businesses out there can create your garlands for you, or if you use an installer or visual merchandising person, I'm sure they can create a garland for you as well. So if you wanted to start the first year with a little investment, you might go with the garland itself and the lights. The lights we use on a garland like this also are called garland lights or cluster lights. So the lights are very close together, probably only ever 2 centimeters apart. And that way you don't have a whole lot of cord that you're trying to hide in a small piece of foliage. So you get maximum coverage of lights with minimum cord to worry about. These are two examples outside of the store. So this works very well if you've got a protection, so as in security, because these are both in very busy areas of London. So therefore, you're not going to have people who are going to be able to take items off those displays. Unfortunately, I wouldn't suggest this if you have a store that is outside, that's in just a street shops, and you don't have a busy area, so therefore people could come along and take your ornaments off it during the evening, which is very unfortunate. But they do look amazing if this is an option, or if you're in a shopping centre, you may find that this is something you can do, or if you're in an area where you close off your retail store with a gate, you might be in more of an industrial area, then you could do something like this to the outside of the store as well. Another example, this is in New York, a beautiful way of adding garlands to the outside. So again, this is a little bit more expensive. Obviously, you've got some premium garlands there with baubles and lots of lights, and it's quite an amazing display. So I wanted to show you in these two photos, we've got the photo on the left we've already seen, but you can see down the bottom we've just laid garland in the window with lights on it. So again, if you don't have a lot of room in your windows, that may be an option for you to simply add a laying garland and add the fairy lights that way, particularly if you struggle to hang them around the window otherwise. And then the photo on the right is the outside of the store. Again, it's got to be over the top. It's a Christmas store, so most retailers are not going to look like this. But you can see that we've got up the top, we've got a garland. So it's just a plain green garland that's actually been lit with multicolour lights, and then a big 90 centimetre wreath in the middle, again just lit with the multicolour lights. And then on the awning itself, you can see that there is a garland that is heavily covered in baubles. So we would change that display each year and create a fresh garland, fresh look for the store. So when you're doing something fresh like that, you're obviously having to invest year upon year, so it's a bit more expensive. But if you go with plain green, then I found those garlands, we had garlands that stayed up there. In fact, on that store itself, we were there for 5 years. The garland did not get changed up the back, and it was fine after 5 years. It did slightly, the colour was a bit more blue than it had started, so it was more green to begin with, but no one would notice the difference, and certainly you could use it every year without an issue. Another couple of ways to show the garlands. The one on the left is, I think, a fabulous idea. It's and I noticed that Raz Imports actually created this year as well. Using a rod or something to give it structure in the middle, and then wrapping a garland or two garlands around that, then you can decorate those garlands with ribbon or baubles, or if you've got products you want to sell, a hanging garland, and then putting your items on the garland. So particularly something like soft toys would be a great option to have as have a garland base and hang the ornaments. Sorry, not ornaments. Hang the animals or the stuffed toys off that. So I think that's a really smart way of using a garland, and a way you can add a beautiful display to different areas of the store. And then the photo on the right is actually Harrods, and Harrods just had lots of garlands that were lit. Again, I can see that they've definitely used cluster lights there with a plain green commercial grade garland, and put them throughout the store with no decorations on it, and it just looks so stylish and so pretty with all the fairy lights everywhere. All right, so let's now look at trees. So when we're looking at Christmas trees, there's a number of things to consider first of all. First, do you have any floor space? And that's often a critical piece in the decision making. It may be the answer is absolutely not, therefore a tree is not an option for you. A tree is going to be more of an investment up front, but it is something that you can put up year upon year, and you don't have to be spending money on it each year. If you can't dedicate floor space to the tree, then consider a tabletop as an option. I've got some photos of those as well, which are an option for you. And also there are slim trees that you can look at. So it doesn't have to be a full width tree. We've got quite a few options around now that are beautiful and slim and therefore can fit in quite small spaces in your store. And half trees, and I'll show you an example of a half tree and where you can get that as well, which works really well. And then the final option is lit twig trees. So just very simple trees. The thing with the lit twig trees is their storage. They're very small in the off season to store and much easier than a much bigger tree. All right, so let's have a look at a couple of ways you can use a tree in your display. So this is an example. This is from the showroom of Raz Imports, one of our ranges that we used to carry, one of the displays I saw in America. So if you have a table, as an example, butting a tree right up against a table can be a great option. You can also sort of slightly push that tree under the table, as you can see there, which does very much reduce the floor print that you need for that tree. Then you've got the option of a tree on a table. So the one on the left, there's a lot around that photo, so I hope you can see it. But we're actually merchandising right underneath the tree and then merchandising right underneath the table there. It's a smaller tree. We used to sell, so our trees came from the artificial Christmas tree, or Xmas tree I should say, warehouse. I'll put the details in the notes. And their trees, you had the option of getting an extension pole, which was 15 centimetres or half a foot. And that meant that you could put the stand together, put the extension pole in, and that lifted the tree foliage up and gave you room to merchandise underneath if you wanted to do that. Then you've got the trees on the right, so they are slim trees. So those are two slim trees decorated in sort of standard corporate decorations. So you can look, when you're looking for decorations, something to consider. These trees here are all shatterproof ornaments. So if you are going to decorate in a store, I would highly recommend, unless you're selling them yourself, the ornaments that are on it, that you go for shatterproof. That way you don't have to worry about someone knocking it or trying to take the ornament off and breaking glass. So those trees are decorated just with simple repeat colouring of ornaments in, I think in this case it was black pewter and gold, which is absolutely stunning. And then this is Anton Jewelers that we did. So they, again, floor space was a premium. So we went for very slim, shorter trees, and at the time we could get these great trunks that were look like tree trunks. So we could actually get the trees up off the ground, so it didn't take as much room, but we still got the height and the look of the trees being a lovely size rather than looking too minuscule in the store. And then you can see through the wreaths. So we had a number of wreaths that were inside the store as well. Everything was well lit so that you really get that beautiful wow effect from the fairy lights throughout. Oops, now I've just realised I've repeated a photo there. There's those same slim trees on the left, but the one on the right I wanted to show you is the half tree. So that's actually a window display, and that tree is designed so it has a stand specifically that only comes out to the front. There's no foliage on the back, so it keeps it very slim and therefore easy to sort of fit against a wall somewhere if you've got that sort of little bit of floor space but don't want to take up the entire retail space with a full round tree. You can also, just while we're at it, that photo you can see we've just hung baubles from one of those grids from the ceiling as well, and then we've got garland going around the display, so you can see a few different uses there of the different techniques we've already spoken about, and the garland just with lights at the front as well. And now we come to the twig tree, and this is a display that Raz Imports put up last year in their showroom, and so I just want to run the little short video so you can see it. I think twig trees are really stunning and a beautiful way of creating some wow impact in your store. You could have them in the window if you wanted to and just have a few decorations on them. Group a couple of them together like this. You can fit them very tightly together, so cluster them together so that you get lots of fairy light effect. If you wanted something like this against a wall, then you can move those twigs around, so clear the back twigs a little bit, push them to the front so you get more of a sort of a half tree, and then you can push that tree in a little bit more against the wall as well, which is a great option for you. So these trees are LED lit, make it very easy to put up, take down, and as I say, you can either add decorations or leave them plain. Just one thing on lights while we're at it for trees. I personally got used to doing a lot of lighting of trees, so I like the flexibility of being able to add my own lights. But if you're looking for ease, then buying a lit tree is a good option for you. Okay, so let's have a look at wreaths. So with wreaths, I suggest for your store, you're looking at 60 centimetres to 1.2 metres, so that's 2 to 4 feet. We often had sort of the display wreaths were either 90 centimetre or 1.2 metre. So if we wanted a real feature piece, then that's what we would have. If you can power the lights, you're always better off using that than battery power. Same as we spoke about before, because it's going to be brighter and you're not going to be replacing batteries all the time. You can leave a wreath lit and undecorated if you want to. I think they can look absolutely stunning. I've got an example to show you. It's just an outside wreath, but you could do this in the store and it looks amazing. Or you can obviously fully decorate it. You could also look to have some sort of custom sign made for the middle of the wreath. So you might have your store logo on it and, wishing your customers a Merry Christmas. So with Canva now, you could create something yourself and have it made, printed for you at, say, Officeworks or wherever you get your printing done, mounted on some light Corfu board, and then if you need to, cut it to size or leave it whatever shape it is. So that's something else that you can do in a wreath, which is a lovely idea. So a few different wreaths, and also I've added a teardrop here. So as I showed you before, the wreath hanging in the middle of the room. So that's one way to do it, and double-sided. The second wreath is a much bigger wreath. It was about 1.2 metres, and they have fully decorated it out with flowers and use, for this case, elf leeks. But you can really go to town if you want to heavily decorate a wreath, and it will take time, but it's not difficult to do. Talk to your local Christmas store and they will be able to help you, or your visual merchandiser may be able to make it up for you as well. And then, as I say, teardrops is another option instead of a wreath. So it's just a different shape, but doing exactly the same thing. You can decorate it heavily, or you can keep it quite plain, or just add baubles like we've done here. The wreath on the left is florals, and I wanted to just show how you can also make a wreath that's quite specific to the colours that you have in your store. So you don't have to go always with the traditional Christmas colours. In fact, all your display you can change the colours to make it more relevant for your store. But a wreath is a particularly easy way of doing this. And, a beautiful wreath like that, if you had let's say a clothing store, a fashion store, you could have a beautiful decorated wreath that sits behind the counter if you have a space there, and that would be a great Christmas display for your store. You can make it, as was shown before, multicolour, or again, I wanted to show you can do monotone as well, which can have quite an impact. That's a smaller size wreath, 60 centimetres, but it could look great in a bigger size as well. And then the third photo here, just showing the simplicity of hanging wreaths with some red ribbon. That's outside a home, but it could sit outside of your store. It could sit on a wall. It could sit on a cupboard door if you have cupboard doors behind your display, anything like that. And this is the 90 centimetre wreath, just lit. Again, just showing how much impact that can have, and how it could look great in a window, or behind the counter, or on a blank wall that you have in the store. Take down a piece of art. If you've got a piece of art in the store, you could simply take that down and put up your wreath as an alternative. I've seen that particularly done like hairdressers or service consultants and so forth. And here's just showing McDonald's using the mix of garlands and also teardrops to add some decoration. So nothing down low, nothing impacting their service area or worrying about from a security point of view. Everything's nice and high. Okay, so I just wanted to finish off with a few other simple ideas for you. So other ideas, poinsettias, we'll show you some photos of some poinsettias, some vases of artificial Christmas foliage, and a few elaborate artificial Christmas foliage displays as well if you're feeling adventurous. So with poinsettias, obviously you could start with just real plants and just group them together, get a couple of nice pots and have them sitting around your store or sitting in the front window. I think poinsettias along the front window would look amazing. The pot on the right is artificial poinsettias that have been simply put into florist foam in that pot. And you could have items like this that are placed around your store just to add that little bit of festive cheer to the different counter areas. Now these are the more elaborate options for you, so they're just showing that if you wanted something that was different, you're looking for that wow factor that's a little bit unique, you could look at having an urn or some sort of larger vessel and creating a stunning display. The simplest is repeat of something like the poinsettias, the artificial poinsettias, and these are showing though you can also add different foliages, you can add ribbons. These displays are things, if you love craft, if you love doing your displays at your store, you could definitely give these a go. Again, the Christmas Coach, which I'll have a link for to our other page, does have some videos where we make up some different bits and pieces, so you get tips on how you would create each and every one of these, and then you can just find some lovely ribbons and foliages to put them together. The photo on the left is, again, it's a wreath idea and it's turning it into a chandelier, so hanging from the ceiling. It's a more elaborate version of a chandelier using crystals, using lots of foliage, using hanging glass ornaments as well. Then the middle photo I want to share, because this is one of the displays we did where we hung ribbon. So if you sell ribbon, this makes it really easy. So obviously people don't take the ribbons from that display, but it was a great way to show the ribbons off. And then the third image, if you like something like these elves, the elves are actually a really good option for adding around the store because you can play with them. You can have them doing silly things like they are here. You can have them upside down. You can have them hanging from chandeliers from your window displays. You can have them hanging from your light displays. So in this case, they've added some boxes and created displays and sat the Christmas items around it. And obviously they're selling all Christmas, but it's a great way to have some of your regular products in the display boxes and then add some Christmas ornaments around. On the left, you've got an option of just using something very large. If you need to have a wall for this, but if you have a wall where you could otherwise put a wreath, you might do something like a pair of candy canes that are attached to the wall. So again, something large can have quite impact. And then on the right, this is a beautiful display from a store in Texas, Miss Casey's, where they've used frames to create that same sort of effect that we've got here on the right, but they've actually used photo frames. So it's a great idea for your store to illustrate some of your beautiful pieces if you want to have some feature pieces behind the counter as an example, but you could also sit Christmas pieces around these as a way of adding that little bit of Christmas wow. Again, here we've got an elf who's upside down, where he's got the strings of lights that have just been blue tacked onto that wall. So yes, if you looked at that with the lights off, you'd see the blue tack, but we left the lights on all the time so you couldn't see it. And the other thing I wanted to show you in that photo is that fa la la. That is just final cut. So if you have a wall, you may be able to put a sign up that you just put up for Christmas that deck the halls, wishing you a Merry Christmas, whatever it might be. You could have something like that you have made for you that you add to the wall and change it up a new message each year. Let's move me out of the way here. And then this photo here, this is just bunches of glass baubles that have been tied together. So just tied to create that sort of real bunch effect with some bows at the top. This is another way, or you could have a couple of groups of these. So I would suggest if you're going to do something like this, you'd want 2 or 3 of them together, and you could hang them behind the counter or in another corner of the store for quite impact. And then this one, again, this is the store where we've used twigs, and sitting above the table, we've got twigs that we've covered in lights, again, lights all the time, and simply hung some of the glass ornaments from it. So a twig display, if you've got that ability to hang from the ceiling like we've been discussing, that's another great option for you. So that is my take on what you can do in your store. The cheapest options would be honeycomb balls and honeycomb decorations, ceiling decorations, larger hanging ones, and then going up to full-on decorated trees, depending on how much you want to add to it. Remember, start with good bases. Always invest in quality tree, quality garlands, quality wreath frames, and then you can add the decorations to it. I've listed some of our favourite suppliers for you in the notes. I've also listed our old store address, so you can have a look at what Tamara's got there as well. So she's got a lot of the sort of pieces that we had, or talk to your visual merchandiser if you use one. It's Nicole from the Retail Marketers. Let's start getting our glitter on for Christmas time. Hope this has been helpful to you. Have a sensational day.